and welcome students. I hope everyone's doing great. Okay, so in today's lesson I will be explaining to you all about dynamic and stative verbs. So pay attention and follow along. So let's begin. Here we have dynamic and stative verbs. A dynamic verb is the verb that describes an action rather than a state. So dynamic verbs are also known as action verbs, progressive verbs, and continuous verbs. For example, eat, walk, learn, grow, sleep, talk, write, run, etc. Dynamic verbs can be used in any tense. So we can use it in the simple present tense, we can use it in the present continuous, and we can use it in the present perfect. A dynamic verb are physical actions. If you can see the action happening, it's a dynamic verb. Another example, fly, eat, run, walk, write. So remember, it's any verb that you can see. Dynamic verbs can be used also in any state, like I said, the simple, the present continuous, and the present perfect. Let me give you some more examples. She works out every day. Or we can say she's working out now. Okay? So again, she works out every day, or she is working out now. Here, the example that I have here for you says, I read a newspaper. This is in the simple present tense. I am reading a newspaper. This is in the present continuous. I have read a newspaper. This is in the present perfect tense. You see how we can use them in the simple present, present continuous, and present perfect? This is the cool thing about dynamic verbs. So now, let's see the difference with stative verb. What is the difference between dynamic and the stative? So a stative verb is the verb that describes a state or condition rather than an action. Okay, so stative verbs are known as state verbs or non-progressive verbs, which means these verbs cannot be used in the progressive form, and we can't use ing with these verbs at all. So we do not say I am loving it, I am hating it, I am liking it. So that's all completely wrong. We cannot use them in the ing. Also remember, state or stative verbs are not physical actions, okay? You cannot see the action happening. So this is the difference between dynamic and stative. Remember, I told you dynamic verbs are physical actions. You can see the action happening, okay? Like fly, eat, run, walk, you can see all of that. Where stative, what we're talking about now, is not physical. You cannot see this action happening. For example, love, hate, like, doubt, prefer, know, seem, agree, understand. So if I say, I love him, you cannot see what love is. It's an emotion. If you say, I hate him, you also cannot see what hate is because it's also an emotion inside of you. If you say, I understand the lesson, you can also, you can't see the word understand, but you know what it means. So this is the difference between dynamic and stative, okay? Like I said, some examples here. Let's say believe. We can say understand. We can say need is a stative verb. We can say suppose is also a stative verb. But remember, we almost never use, like I said before, we never use these in continuous form, like adding an ing to love, loving, hate, hating, like, liking. Never. We can never put it in the continuous form, which is adding an ing. For example, you don't say, I am understanding you. That's completely wrong. You say, I understand you. Okay? So let's recap. Dynamic verbs can be seen. State or stative verbs cannot be seen. Again, dynamic verbs can be seen. State or stative verbs cannot be seen. So now let's see the difference between the two and dynamic verb. We talked about the differences. Now we know that we can divide these English verbs into three groups. So we know the difference between the dynamic and the stative. We know what each one is. Now we're going to divide them into three groups. We have dynamic verbs, which I discussed a little bit ago. Stative verbs I just finished discussing. And we have mixed verbs. We have the dynamic verbs are also known as progressive verbs, continuous verbs, and action verbs. Okay, progressive verbs we said, we talked about it, continuous verbs adding ing, and action verbs, they're verbs you can see, like write, run, walk. You can see all of these actions happening. Where stative verbs are non-continuous verbs. Okay, like I said, we cannot put ing. They are not continuous. We cannot say, I am loving him. I am hating him. I am understanding you. No, we cannot. And we have the mixed verbs. So let's look at the dynamic first. Dynamic verbs are, most verbs are in this group, so most English verbs are in this group. Dynamic verbs usually involve an action or an active process, like I said. For example, to play, to eat, to speak. Okay, we can see all of these. We can also use dynamic verbs to form continuous tenses. Again, we can also use dynamic verbs to form the continuous tenses, like to play, to eat, to speak. What we were talking about, we can say, I am playing with my friends. She was eating lunch with him, and we will be speaking to him later. Okay, again, I am playing with my friends, she was eating lunch with him, and we will be speaking with him later. So we put play, we put eat, and we put speak in the continuous tense, adding an ing to each word. Now, let's look at the stative verbs. Stative verbs are used to talk about states and situations that continue for a long time. Okay? Now here we have, they include abstract, emotion, and possession. Let's talk about each one. Abstract means, like for example, to know, to want, to need. Emotion include to love, to hate, to prefer. These are emotions inside of you. And possession, we can say to have. I want to have a nice car. I want to own a big mansion. To belong, I belong to a big family. So this is all possession. This is all things you want. Excuse me. Emotions are feelings inside of you. They cannot be seen. And abstract are, their description of, like, to know. I want to know more about Albert Einstein. To want, I want to become famous. Okay, this is an abstract. To need, I need lots of friends. These are all abstract examples. Next, possession verbs such as to have, to own, and to belong. Like I said, this is something that belongs to you. Emotion verbs, like I said, to love, to hate, to prefer. Their feelings, and abstract. They're like statements: to know, to want, to need. For the stative verbs, we cannot use stative verbs to form the continuous tense. Like I said, I'm going to repeat it. We cannot use stative verbs to form the continuous tense. So, for the abstract that we talked about, no, we cannot say, I am knowing this girl. Okay, this is not correct. For the emotion, for hate, we cannot say, he was hating his work. Not correct. This is not correct. And we cannot say for own, we cannot make it into continuous and add an ing. We cannot say, I will be owning this house. Not correct. Please note that although they are not correct grammatically, a lot of native speakers use them to prefer, to prefer an active process. And the most common one, they say, I'm loving it. I sometimes say that, even though grammatically it's wrong. But, like native speakers understand each other when they say it. We know it's grammatically wrong, but this is the most common one, I'm loving it. Like the commercial McDonald's, I'm loving it. That's actually it's wrong grammatically, it's wrong, but you know what the difference is. You say I love it. We cannot say I'm loving it, because we cannot add continuous ing to love. And so these are all wrong. Many of my students use stative verbs in this wrong way. And that's why this is a very important lesson, to know the difference between dynamic and stative, to know the abstract, emotion, and possession, and most importantly, to know that we cannot use the stative verb to form continuous tense. Okay? And in my next video, I will give you more example words of dynamic and stative verbs. The correct way of writing them, saying them. Okay, so here we also have mixed verbs. Like we said, mixed verbs have two meanings. One meaning is dynamic, and the other meaning is stative. Okay. For example, the verb to look. Okay, the verb to look, it has a dynamic meaning and it has a stative meaning. For the dynamic, for example, it would be, I am looking at you. Okay, so here I am looking at you. Here we are talking about the active process of looking, such as I am observing you, I am looking straight at you. So you know that I am looking at you because my eyes are toward you. So when I say I am looking at you, pay attention. I am looking at you. This is, to look in the dynamic form. Now, moving to the stative verb to look, we say, here we have, you look happy. Okay, you look happy. Here we are describing a state, which is you appear happy. Maybe you are smiling, maybe you are, looking comfortable, maybe you are just, you just have a happy, actions. So some verbs in the mixed group to hear, to weigh, to feel, to appear, to have, and to see. These are mixed verbs which have two meanings. We can use them in a dynamic and we can use them in the stative form. Okay, so I hope you got a better understanding of the dynamic and stative and mixed verbs. It's pretty easy, not complicated. Just don't complicate it. Just please know the difference between dynamic and stative. Study each one and know that there are mixed verbs. In my next video, I will give you examples of dynamic verbs, stative verbs, and mixed verbs. And that's it for today's lesson. Have a great day. Take care and be active.